all across America and around the world. This is Veterans Radio. This is Veterans Radio.
Welcome to Veterans Radio. I am Jim Fausone. I'm the officer of the deck today. We've got some great programs for you. I think you'll find very interesting. We always want to remind you, you can find more about Veterans Radio at its Facebook site or at the web. Veteransradio.org is our new URL, veteransradio.org, where we're on the web 24/7. You can find a lot of our podcasts there as well. We post new ones every Tuesday, so you can get a new story, a new interview, something you didn't know before by going to veteransradio.org. And before we get started, we want to thank our sponsors. First up, we want to thank National Veteran Business Development Council, nvbdc.org. It was established to certify both service-disabled and veteran-owned businesses. You'll find out how they can help your business by going to nvbdc.org. We want to thank Legal Help for Veterans. Legal Help for Veterans fights for veterans' disability rights all across the nation. You can reach them at 800-693-4800 or on the web at legalhelpforveterans.com. We want to welcome to Veterans Radio today Commander Bruce A. Wright, retired United States Navy, who's going to talk about chronic lymphatic leukemia, one of those gifts from Agent Orange that just keeps giving. Commander, welcome to Veterans Radio.
Hi, I'm glad to be with you today.
Well, it's good to have you on. A nice kid from Syracuse, New York, found his way to the Naval Academy in Annapolis in 1963. Upon graduation, Uncle Sam said, "Now that I got you, you're going to go over to Vietnam for us." And your first duty assignment was as a gunnery and fire control division officer on the USS Turner Joy, I guess. You did that. I'm surprised you can even hear me anymore.
Well, I have hearing aids to help that today.
Anybody in gunnery's got to have the hearing aids by this point. But but as you got into this, you sort of said, I always really wanted to fly, and you went into the Naval Aviation Training Pipeline, became a naval flight officer. You flew F-4J Phantom IIs, and by the time you retired after 20 plus years, you had over 2,400 flight hours and 220 combat missions and over 400 carrier landings. Boy, you got to do it all, didn't you?
Yeah, and there's one thing I think I forgot to include. I also am a Top Gun graduate.
Well, you certainly got to get that in light of the movies that have become so popular before Top Gun flying was considered a thing, right?
That's right. But I can tell you all the hidden secrets of the Top Gun 1 and 2 when we talk again later.
What's wrong about those movies, right? So
there's just little hidden things like my reserve commanding officer had a guest appearance in it. As the date for Kelly McGillis after she blew off Maverick at the Officers Club bar in Miramar. That'll
win you trivia at the bar every time.
That's right.
You had a couple of deployments to Vietnam from 1971 to 1973, and you also had some stops over in Thailand. Give us, that's the real thumbnail sketch of your 20-plus career, but talk to us a little bit about that career and why you stayed in. So many guys got out. Give us a little of that history. Yeah,
I entered in peacetime, but graduated in war. And it was incumbent upon most of us to want to go towards the war effort at the time, better than going into the Mediterranean where you had to shine shoes and make sure everything was all starched up. And so I started out on a destroyer and had the premier job, which is gunnery and fire control, and fired 25,000 rounds in anger, anywhere from 4 Corps all the way up to Sea Dragon off North Vietnam. And I first got introduced to Agent Orange in 1968 when we pulled into Da Nang to get a brief on what the tempo was shortly after Tet. And I spent the day living and talking and eating with the Marines in Da Nang.
Well, that's certainly been one of the controversies over time that have I think gotten a little better because VA started with only boots on the ground guys, and then it was brown water. Okay, we'll let the blue water Navy get in there too, and oh yeah, some of those planes I guess actually did carry barrels of Agent Orange back and forth. So some of that has caused great angst for many Vietnam veterans over the decades, but it's a little better today than it was when you got out, that's for sure.
Oh, sure. We actually touched the ground in 1968, but when I came back as flying, often on a carrier, if you have hung ordnance, you can't land safely on the carrier, or if the deck of the carrier is foul with some accident or problem, they'll send you to Da Nang to sit there and refuel and wait till the next recovery cycle. And as we'd sit there, there was no air conditioning in the F4, so we kept our canopies open, and the helos were taking off all the time with the spray arms out, just dripping the stuff. And we would get wet from it and say, oh, they're dropping something. We didn't know what it was at the time.
Nobody really expected what would happen out of that. And you also spent some time in Thailand. Tell us a little bit about that, because that's another place that over time DOD and VA has finally said, okay, yeah, there was Agent Orange in Thailand. Don't talk to us about Guam.
Yeah, Guam, they stored it there too. I don't have personal experience with that, although we stopped through there as a destroyer, going through from Midway and in Guam and pulling into the Philippines before we went on the gun line. But I spent time, my first combat hop, feet dry, we call it. We're dropping ordnance and over Chapon, Laos, and we took a combat hit, and we had to do emergency landing into Kam Phanom, Thailand, and they used Agent Orange there. I also spent time flying with a nail fax out of the Kam Phanom later, and also been to Ubon, Thailand. All those places used Agent Orange.
And now finally I'm being recognized for doing that. And again, there was a long struggle by a lot of veterans and veteran organizations to uncover the data that allowed that, and similarly with Guam.
Yeah.
So, Commander, what year did you get out?
I commissioned in 1967. I got off active duty in 1973, and I retired in 1991 from reserves. But it's a full retirement package, which everything kicked in, like TRICARE and TRICARE for life and stuff like that, starting at age 60.
Well, I'm trying to get you to the point of the story where you finally said, I guess I got to get through the VA system. I've earned these benefits. Let me figure out what health care I might be able to get, because that was not an easy process for you.
No, you're reading my mind. The next step was that I participate with the Long Beach Veterans Administration Hospital, and I went in and entered the Agent Orange registry when they quizzed me where I'd been, which got me touchy-feely exam, a chest x-ray, and a blood draw. And from that blood draw, I was called back to the VA, and they informed me that I had what's called Chronic Lymphocytic Leukemia, CLL. Oh, and I also had prostate cancer. Both of those are on the presumptive disease list from exposure to Agent Orange. That prostate cancer we can talk about another day. And when I went in for the debrief from the doctor who told me that I had CLL, I said, well, what's that? And he said, Google it. And according to Google, I shouldn't be talking to you today because I should be dead 5 years after he told me that.
And this is, again, this is 2009?
Yes.
And just veteran radio listeners, as we talk to Commander Wright here, think about that. The doctor says you have this disease you've never heard of, and rather than kind of explain it, or at least give you a pamphlet on it, he says Google it, which is going to leave you nothing but downright scared, I suspect. Yeah.
The VA is a teaching hospital, so you don't maintain a constant interface with that doctor. They move on after they get their residency out of the way. So there's what's called an attending physician. The University of California, Irvine supplies the new doctors to the Long Beach VA, and their attending gentleman was a couple years older than me, and he filled in once my original doctor left. And so one of the things we tell veterans is advocate for yourself. Don't be shy to ask the question. And I asked the attending, I said, do you have any patients? And he said, no, I keep an eye on the little guys. And I said, well, you got one now. It's me. Do you have a problem with that? And he said, well, no. And so
now you
watch and wait period with him before it was time to need treatment. And that's when I went to the current doctor I see, Dr. Kipps, down in San Diego.
And talk to us about what CLL is and does and how it manifests itself, because the reason you and I are talking is while we have certainly this presumptive for Agent Orange, it's kind of a term nobody ever hears of. Prostate cancer, yeah, you hear about that. But CLL, not so much. So tell us about it.
CLL is a cancer of the blood system. And it causes us to become what we call immunocompromised. Our immune system is compromised because the white blood cells that are made that don't work right have a DNA defect to them. And one, they don't fight infection. And two, unlike all the rest of the cells in your body, they don't die. And so they accumulate. They accumulate into your lymph nodes. They accumulate into your spleen. And they accumulate in your your bone marrow. And when they accumulate and they don't die, they can actually totally fill up your blood manufacturing capability of the bone marrow. And so you can't make red blood cells and platelets, and then you die.
Well, in this condition, in your instance, was found through a routine blood test. This is like 16 years after you've been exposed in Vietnam. Yes. Were you experiencing symptoms that you couldn't relate to anything else, or did this just come as a lightning bolt that you don't know this yet, you haven't had any symptoms yet, but you got this chronic problem?
I had no prior indication other than I had a skiing accident up at Mammoth in California, great place to go. And in ER, they said your white blood cell count is up. Maybe you injured, because you injured yourself, it's up because they're trying to fight the injury. And a subsequent blood test said, no, it's not because of that. It's because you have CLL.
Well, there's a lesson there, right? Cow. There's a lesson there for veterans and many of us, particularly guys, right? We don't like going to the doctor. We don't like these so-called routine tests that just seem to be to charge somebody. But without that routine blood test, you wouldn't have known.
Yes, sir. You're correct. Right. Spot on.
So when you get this diagnosis and he sends you home to Google it, what was your impression of how this is going to go?
That I informed my wife, and I said I had the big C, cancer. I was riding my Harley Davidson home that day. I don't know how I stayed upright on it. And she said, we'll get through this together. And I started looking for support groups online, and I found one that was casual at the time. And one of the people in there, a guy named Terry Evans, said, hey, we have this local group in Orange County, California. Would you like to participate? And I said, sure. And out of that participation, this group grew until 2013 when Ryan Kaufman, an MD with CLL, and his wife Patty formed the CLL Society. And it's the same kind of organization with you. It's a nonprofit, as you have. It's a nonprofit organization, costs nothing to join. And we have focused all of our efforts into teaching people all about CLL.
And that website is very simply cllsociety.org, and we'll say it a couple of more times through this. But as you participated in support groups and found your way to the CLL Society, what did you learn about your treatment and your prognosis as that time moved along?
I learned that no one wants the big C, but this is one of the ones that you have time to learn about it, study it, and act upon it. everyone has the title CLL when they're diagnosed, but the next level down, each one of us is different, and how it's going to manifest with us individually and what type of medicine is available for us to use. I fortunately had to watch and wait for 5 years because the original treatments were based upon derivatives of mustard gas, which is profoundly bad for your marrow. And by the time I was ready for treatment, they had brand new 21st century medicines. And I was on put on a medicine called obinutuzumab, which is a monoclonal antibody. And my DNA did not change from my individual form of CLL, which is a 13q deleted, which is another thing I tell everyone: learn all the numbers about your particular CLL. You know, ZAP70 negative, 13q deleted, and I'm CD38 negative, and I am mutated. So I'm actually a mutant, and that's a good thing with CLL.
Yeah, and your wife always thought you were a little bit mutated, but one of the things,
don't let that secret out.
Yeah, one of those things that you have to do, and you just sort of mentioned it, is you have to educate yourself, and you have to advocate for yourself. You have to find the right doctor and hospital for yourself in many instances, because there's, it's not like this is everywhere. Talk us through that process of how you got to the right spot for you.
I went and attended a presentation down in San Diego at the big university complex down there. That's a big research center, and the doctor that was putting on a lecture was Dr. Thomas Kipps, and he and his office have 1,500 patients, all CLL patients. So he's definitely a specialist, and that's what I tell anyone who comes down with CLL: is spoil yourself. Treat yourself to a specialist. Your life is important to you. Get the best that you can get. And what we've done with the CLL Society website, if you go to it, let's say a regular hematologist who maybe sees 3 to 5 CLL patients a year diagnoses you with chronic lymphocytic leukemia. Okay, bring that forward. We have the ability for you to have a private discussion with an expert through the CLL website, and they can look at your medicine and your particular prognosis from that particular doctor, and we give you what's called a free CLL expert opinion. And that doctor will look at your record, look at what's going on with you, and since he's a specialist, he can change your rudder in the direction you're going to get you the best kind of treatment you can for your particular type of CLL.
Well, that's so important to have that second opinion, and you mentioned a blood doctor who might only see a few of these a year. You'd really like to know too if in the next town over there's somebody who does 100 of these a year, who has that many patients, and what their outcome is. Does the society assist you in networking with other medical treatment providers?
Yes, I live in California, and we have several sites where you can have different experts, whoever's closest to where you live. And we have a profoundly large group of over 40 support groups. I'm what's called a senior support group advisor. I have 10 support groups that report through me, and we educate the leaders of those support groups twice a year and sit in on their presentations and share across all 40 groups what's going on in the CLL world.
Now, we're talking to veterans and friends of veterans. So is this treatment, and is there expertise within the VA system to be treated? You would think in light of this being a presumptive disease of Agent Orange, there'd be some internal VA expertise. Am I right or wrong in that thinking?
Well, since they're teaching hospitals, the core staff may have some knowledge in it, but they're looking at everything, and I don't believe they have a good manning level to be able to specifically address it. It's a very sophisticated path you must take to combat what's going on within your own particular form of CLL. And our website, which is free, none of this costs. You need to pass this on to the veterans. None of this costs anything but your discretionary time. There's no dollars. All of our information is free. We provide you a list of specialists throughout the United States, where they're located and which one's closest to where you are. For example, we have veterans that are in Colorado and there's no expert up there. So several of them go down to Texas, and there's great CLL support in the hospital down there at MD Anderson. And
are they able to get their care covered then by VAs paying for them because there isn't anybody in the local area? So is this a community of care issue?
If you have CLL and it was caused by Agent Orange, you will get 100% disability rating from the VA, VBA, Veterans Benefits. And so it won't cost you a thing through the VA to go to someplace else. It'll be picked up.
Because of that rating, you can get your care outside the VA system and have it covered.
Yes.
Okay, I know that's what you're saying, but I want to be clear for our veteran radio listeners that we're really talking about an organization in the CLL Society that is helping you get the care you need. Don't worry about the cost. Too many people say, I don't want to call or touch somebody because of, I don't have the insurance or I can't pay for it. If you've got this CLL from Agent Orange, you should have 100% of disability, and you're going to get covered. And folks like the CLL Society, they're not asking for your insurance card. It's free information, right?
Yes, everything we do with the CLL Society is free to the veteran. You just have to ask us. And when, for example, today, I just had referred through our organization a veteran who I won't disclose his name, but he happens to also be a doctor, and he has CLL and he's a veteran, and he wants some questions answered, and that name is passed to me.
It sounds like it's really well organized, and give the society a lot of credit for that. We're talking to Navy Commander Bruce A. Wright, retired. He is a prostate cancer and CLL cancer survivor for his 15 years post-diagnosis, I think, with his CLL. Does one recover? I said you've recovered from it, but if it's chronic disease, is this something that you will manage for the rest of your life?
Yes, you will. It never goes away. It's like you play whack-a-mole. You knock it down, and you get down to a level, but there still is no magic key to lock it up for good. It will come back, and then you look at what is available, and the medicines are still coming on that are new and better every time they get issued and get FDA approval.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go. So there's lots of research in this area, and therefore a lot of hope that, hey, you're going to make it more than the 5 years. As I say, you're at 15 or something at this point, but this is a manageable chronic disease. The VA does a lot of things right. They also do some things wrong, but they do a lot of things right. And we are glad to have this opportunity to talk to Commander Wright, who's a veteran advocate, in particular a CLL patient advocate and educator with the CLL Society. You can go to cllsociety.org to find out more about it. And we really appreciate you talking to us about this, Bruce. And it's a great resource that more veterans ought to know about should they come down with this, lifetime chronic diagnosis. And I want to thank everybody for listening to Veterans Radio today. I am Jim Fausone. It's been a pleasure to be your host. I'm a veterans disability lawyer at Legal Help for Veterans, and you can reach us at 800-693-4800 or legalhelpforveterans.com on the web. You can follow Veterans Radio on Facebook and listen to its podcasts and internet radio shows by visiting us at veteransradio.org. That's veteransradio.org. And until next time, you are dismissed.
If you have a VA claim denied by the Board of Veterans' Appeals, contact Legal Help for Veterans at 1-800-693-4800. They're experts in handling cases before the U.S. Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims. Their number again, 1-800-693-4800.
We again want to thank our national sponsors, the National Veterans Business Development Council, nvbdc.org, VA Ann Arbor Health Care System, the Vietnam Veterans of America Charles S. Kettles Chapter, Ann Arbor, Michigan, VFW Graf O'Hara Post 423 in Ann Arbor, and the American Legion Press Corn Post 46, also in Ann Arbor. We appreciate all your support. You can go to veteransradio.net, click on the sponsor level, and continue to support keeping Veterans Radio on the air. And until next time, you are dismissed.
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, you know, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.